Obviously, you were here last season with the coaching staff. What's it been like for you, kind of adjusting to having a bunch of changes on the offensive side of the ball?
I think it's been great. I think I've been in this league long enough to understand that every year is going to be different. And obviously some more than others. I was here with Coach Pierce last year, obviously through that transition, and built a really good relationship with him. So being able to stay and be a part of this organization has been great. With Luke coming in, installing his offense as well as the rest of the staff. I think it's been a really good transition. Guys have really bought in to what we're trying to do. We've had a lot of good attendance, and guys are really working hard and trying to get better. And that's really what's important this time of year. Obviously you're going for results, and that's what ultimately matters. But just focusing on the process, and getting one day better. I know I'm speaking in cliches, but that's what I mean. That is true. There's a reason that people say that, because that's what you're trying to do day in and day out, and that ultimately gets you where you want to be.
Is this offense more toward your roots schematically, or a little bit different, or dramatically different? How would you say that?
I would say it's a little bit more towards it. What I've been a part of in the past, I've been around some different people, obviously, and then I was able to do it for myself for 3 years. But I think in this league, a lot of times you get the best players you possibly can, so you have to be able to adapt your scheme. So I've been a part of a lot of different types of offense, and this offense has some elements of things I've been around in the past, and I think that's what we're doing is. Coach Getsy is doing a great job of, learning our personnel, doing a lot of different stuff. And then, as we get closer to the season, we're going to hone in on, what it is exactly that these guys are good at, and what they can execute and do together. And then you'll see it really kind of take shape for what it is.
Scott, when you have two young young tight ends in Mayer and Bowers who are equally proficient in blocking as well as catching the football, what does that do schematically to allow you? Because people can't assume, okay, he's blocking. What does it just allow you, and what does it open up for you?
Well, I think what you said. It keeps the defense off balance. And when you can play in multiple personnel groups, and you have some guys, like Michael, like Brock, that can kind of do different things. You can almost be in two personnel groups at the same time. You know what I mean? So like if Brock can block, but he can also run routes, you're kind of in 12 and 11 personnel at the same time. So just anything you can do to present more issues for the defense, and a lot of that's with formations and motions, but if you can do it with your personnel groups, that just adds another layer to that. And that's what, players that are going to make plays and be dynamic like those guys can do for you.
How much do they help settle the quarterbacks down as well? Because they can be security blankets, but also make big plays.
I think a lot, and I think time will tell on that. And we have other guys, that are going to do that. I think, when you're talking about the pass game in general, my experience, like the guys that get open, they settle the quarterback down, So regardless of their position, I know that there's a lot to be said about, the tight end being a security blanket for the quarterback. And that's true. And I think a lot of that's because a lot of times those passes can be closer to the line of scrimmage, so they're not as far downfield, and they're bigger bodies, so they can be easier to throw to. But, I've been in, situations before we had where like a running back was kind of the security blanket because he'd always get open on option routes, and so, you'd get an easy completion, and so that can be true at a lot of different positions. But those are two really good players. They're going to find ways to get open, and that helps.
When you have that component, do you go back and study some teams that were proficient in 12 personnel and utilizing their two tight ends who are viable in the pass game?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, you've heard the expression before, this is a copycat league. So you try to study the teams that you're like, and then when you add some new players and maybe your personnel is a little different than what it's been in the past, you do that. You kind of look around the league, the last few years and say, all right, who's been in this similar situation? What are the things that they do? How can it fit us? And that's what a lot of times this time of year is for. You're installing certain plays, and obviously, you can't do everything during the game, but, you get a chance to see, what you're good at, what your guys are good at, what the coaches feel comfortable with, and then that's what kind of grows into. But yeah, we're people call it copying. I call it research, just to look and just kind of see what works,
What's the biggest biggest thing you've seen in Aiden in year two?
You know, Aiden's is such a great, like, focused, young man. I mean, he's obviously a second-year player, but he conducts himself, like a veteran. And he's got a great balance of, understanding, like, leadership and work and talking to the right way, but also, like, it's not fake, and he's one of the guys, too. He can connect with the other players. Because I've seen it that way where, a quarterback, especially like a young player, is so focused on like being the leader that he kind of loses sight of, kind of the brotherhood and the camaraderie that this game is so important, obviously when you face adversity. And I think, the work that he's put in, he's earned the respect and the trust of the other players in this locker room. And then he's also, he's got a good sense of humor, so he's good, being one of the guys and connecting to people as well.
We often talk about players learning a new system and trying to figure that out. Like when there's new coaches on a staff, how tough is it for coaches to kind of learn a new system and learn each other and figure out just the specifics of what everybody wants?
Yeah, it is. I mean, you're right, because you do talk about players a lot. And obviously we have more time, because as soon as we got the staff in place, I mean, we hit the ground running with meetings and, installing the scheme and meeting and talk about exactly what it's going to be. And, I think, like, I always have equated it to like learning a new language, a lot of times it's the same thing that you've done in the past, it's just called something different, so, you just got to really attack it. You got to like force yourself to speak in the new language. And a lot of times I'll go back to, what I used to call it however many years ago. And you got to make yourself, talk the other way. And then, inside of that, like we might call it the same way. We call it differently. It's the same play, but there's a couple different coaching points that are different. And so you got to emphasize exactly how you want it done in this scheme. So learning that, that's part of it. And it takes work, and it takes time. There's not, it's not just like a magic, you don't just like translate it right away. But yeah, the meetings, obviously then getting the players on the field, having things happen that maybe you didn't cover in the meeting. So, a coach can make sure he's coaching it the right way in his specific position room. But, that's where this offseason is so important. And the more time we have together, the better.
Jay Tucker got on the field and flashed last year in his opportunities. What would you say that his next step is as he continues his development?
You're right. I mean, Trey was impressive last year, and he's had an outstanding offseason for us. Just being he was towards the end of the year, he's like an every down player, but one of those guys that's out there, the receiver's not going to be 100% of snaps, but, 65, 70% of the snaps. And just being able to do the whole route tree, because he's got it in him. Obviously you guys know that he can run, but he can stop and then be consistent catching the football, which he showed, as the year went on. But just continue to grow in really all aspects of it. But, playing fast, playing with confidence. I think a lot of times, young players get in this league and you got to kind of prove to yourself, they're like, all right, I can play in this league. And I think that he did that. And then once that happens, kind of the governor comes off and, you see, how good can these guys truly be.
It's year two for you being back here, but just what's it mean to you personally to be back in Las Vegas, kind of a full circle moment?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, going to school at UNLV, playing for John Robinson, Hall of Fame coach, was a great experience for me. When I left, I got into coaching in college, and then made my way to the NFL, and Vegas got a team, so we came back here and played. In 21 when I was with Washington, and had a bunch of family come to that game because a lot of my family lives in Southern California. And then, to be back living here has been really good. My family loves it. We live in the Henderson Anthem area, and, we like being out here, again, closer to my side of the family. My wife's from Pittsburgh, so she's a little bit, far from her family, but being out here is great. And I love Vegas. It's a great town.
This is as good as the program has been over at UNLV probably since you were there. So, I mean, what is it like for you to kind of watch their success?
Yeah, it's cool. Right when the season ended, I got a chance. I went through their tape because they had a lot of success on offense. And Coach Marion, I've been trying to link up with him. I text him. I got his number from somebody and just talking back and forth. And I watched a lot. They do a lot of stuff in the run game that's really fun and creative. And we can't, like, they run a lot of formations that aren't legal in the NFL. Like, you can't have your tackle be the last guy on line of scrimmage in the NFL and stuff like that, but you can get to it a little bit. But anyways, watching that was cool. Like it's just creative. I like stuff like that when guys kind of go outside the box and being able to text back and forth with him. And I got to try to connect with him maybe when we both have a little bit of time off. You know, it's just hard with them and recruiting, and then us in the off season, and I got to spend time with my family as well sometimes too. So.
Did you read his book at all?
I did not. I didn't. No, I got to check that out.
Mark invests a lot of money in the big screens on the side of the field. How do those make you a better coach and make the team better?
So, everybody, we have these seminars of, connecting with Gen Z and all that stuff. And, a lot of that, like one of the things that they teach and they learn about is instant feedback, and I think that's true for everybody, not just the younger generation, but like you want that instant feedback. And, as coaches, like we'll see stuff in practice, and like I know, I'll get a guy after a rep and be like, hey, did you see what happened on this play? And they'll be like, oh, well, I saw it a different way. And now you can just go to the screen right now. You don't have to wait till the film room, and it just buys you that extra, 5 to 7 minutes. And sometimes it's during a water break. Sometimes it's in between a play when a guy's not taking a rep. And then you can see. And sometimes it's like, oh, you know what, I was wrong. You were right to the player. And other times they'll see and be like, oh, coach, I didn't see that safety rotate or whatever it was. Hey, get your hand placement on a reach block or something, but it's directly there and it's right after it's done, and you can kind of get corrections done. And so it's not like, all right, now practice is over, you go in, you shower, you have meetings, you make the correction, guy takes a note, and then he's got to go wait till the next day to try to fix that technique or recognize that coverage. It's like, all right, bam, now I'm back in my next rep, and it might happen again, it might not, but it's right there, So, obviously technology is amazing. I mean, we all use it, and anything that we can do to get an edge, I think, is great, because the margin's so slim in this league. So, with Mr. Davis being able to invest in us as coaches and players and something like that, I mean, it's a big deal, and it helps our guys.
One more thing on UNLV. Obviously, you grew up around football, played a lot, but how much did your time there, and I guess with John Robinson specifically, kind of inform your career in the 20 years?
Yeah, so I liked playing football. I wasn't a great player. I was a backup quarterback at UNLV, and I kind of knew like college football was probably my last stop. So when I made my decision, I always knew I wanted to coach. My dad was a coach. I just loved football. I wanted to be around the game. So when I made my decision to go to college, a lot of that was based on learning how to be a coach. And when you're around a guy like that, that's obviously a college football Hall of Fame coach, had a great career at the Rams as a head coach there as well. It was great. We had guys like Bruce Snyder, who he obviously unfortunately passed away a while ago, but he had been the head coach at Arizona State, and great coaching staff. And just watching those guys, and Coach Robinson in particular, just the way he connected with players, the way he communicated was really great to see. And that's something I try to keep with me and take with me as I've gone through my career.
I guess when you have a coaching staff, like you have so many coaches that are around, but when you're the passing game coordinator, you're an offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, I guess how are those roles kind of defined? How would you define what you
It's very fluid. I mean, I have the same role. I have the same title this year as I did last year. I wouldn't say my job is necessarily the same. To me, it's all about the leadership and the structure, and ultimately, like, I'm here to help Coach Pierce and Coach Getsy, be successful. So if there's something that I can do, whether it's, meet with a group of players, whether it's, do some research on a certain offense, whether it's look at a certain area of the field, how can we get better? If it's install in front of the group, those are a lot of different things that I'll do. And just, with my, my experience, I've been in this league, I've called plays in this league, I've been, part of different players' offense, like, being able to offer, when they need it, like advice or just something, hey, maybe you haven't seen this before, I have, that's just kind of my role. And to me, like, that's what's important. I think, we talk about a lot, like, guys know what's your role, like, how can you help and excel in that role? And that's just what I try to do to help us ultimately win football games. Because I think if that happens, everyone's happy.
Good.
Thank you, guys.
Yes, sir.
What's up, guys?
Rob, obviously you had a terrific defensive line last year, but do you pinch yourself when you realize you had a Christian Wilkins?
Every day. It's one of the best groups I've been around in 12 years. It's a lot of fun. But, I mean, what's crazy is it's the same group plus him from last year. So like, last year, I remember what people were saying as well going into the season. You know, I mean, John Jenkins and Adam Butler were like camp bodies. You know what I'm saying? So, and then you add a guy that they're familiar with. It's a lot of fun to come work every day.
On that, I mean, you talk about Adam Butler and John Jenkins. What did it mean to be able to get those guys back?
Everything. In terms of like creating a standard, him in '98. This is one of the groups that what makes this special is you're building a team, like not just a group of talent. So their traits, their personalities all play off each other. They balance each other really well, which creates infectious energy, and it's a lot of fun.
Coached him for a few years in Miami, Christian Wilkins. How have you seen him grow as a player over the years into what he is now?
A lot. Very similar to '98's path in terms of becoming a pro. In a lot of ways, he struggled as a rookie. You know, that tank for 2 a year in 19 was tough. It was tough on everybody. It was tough on me as the coach. I know it was tough on him. No different for 9. Last year was a tough rookie year. And a lot of like these young defensive linemen coming into their rookie year, especially the guys that are drafted at the top of the draft, they have to deal with expectations and all those type of things. He's somebody that can talk him through that process, what he went through. And every year he just kept getting better and better. But like you can see with these guys, and Christian will talk about it, like when the light bulb went on, and then, in my opinion, they just take ownership and create their own process. It turns into nutrition. It turns into the routine on and off the field. No different than '98. But that's like what it's all about as a coach, seeing that come on, and then when they take ownership of it, it's awesome.
Obviously, Tyree is trying to move in that direction. What have you seen from him now? Obviously, he wasn't out here last year at this point.
No question.
It's probably a huge part of that.
Yeah.
Struggles as a rookie, but what have you seen from him thus far?
Mindset, attitude, not giving a, you know what people think. Hey, that's wrong, do it again, do the drill again. Working to the standard of what we've created in that room and really as a defense. Really ain't that hard as a defensive line play. It's playing hard. It's attacking the ball like it's anyone you ever loved and anything you hold dear. And it's not getting blocked one-on-one. So those may seem like cliches. That's how we start off every meeting. That's what we're all about. You hear AP talk about it all the time. It needs to sound a certain way. Like, you know, I was talking this morning to the group about like that feeling when we went out in Kansas City and took the field. I didn't know whether we were going to win or lose, but I knew the way the game was going to be played. So that's the standard we're trying to create. That's what Tyree's embracing. It's a mindset. It's a mentality over anything else. And he's displayed that in training camp. And so, like, when you're not good at something and then pushing through it and working towards getting better at it, that is a mindset because there's people around you. They see you do a crappy rep. No, wrong. Do it again. And attacking the ball, running all the way down the field like '98, punching at it, being an a-hole. You know, disrupting practice. If you develop that mindset, the results are just like, it'll happen. It'll happen.
You think you heard the outside noise last year that had an effect on him last year?
Of course. Like I said, you try to say, hey, you know, your mindset in a bubble when you walk in this building. But I mean, they're young guys. You know what I'm saying? They know what's being said, and it's. I told him no different than I told Jalen Phillips as a rookie. I said it's not your fault. I said that God made you this way, built this way, and you were drafted 7th overall. The expectations come with it. You know, and like that's kind of what I'm. It's going on year 12 for me. You've got these hungry, chip on their shoulder players. You know, Max Crosby, late round draft pick. You know, our whole room is kind of filled up with. Like I said, a lot of different personalities, but a lot of those chip on the shoulder type players. And then there's some guys that got to carry the burden of where you were drafted or the expectation. 94 is going to have to carry that this year. And that's just part of the job, fighting through it. But his approach, his mentality is right on par with what you want.
You talk about different personalities and carrying that expectation. When you look at Malcolm Kuntz and kind of his journey from where he was when you first got here to now, what would you describe as his personality and how has he grown?
He's grown tremendously. I think just the results were I know that everybody talks about the last eight games, but I mean, he was winning a lot of rushes early. just without the result. We try to stay away from focusing on the result of the sack. You know, Christian could get good middle push and the quarterback flush out the back and 9 gets the sack. So really focusing on the process of winning each rush. And then it was fun to see it click for him. And he has that personality. When he starts headbutting and he starts getting like juiced up, 98 always brings the juice. When he gets going, then it really, you know, affects the whole unit. He's just fun. Like he is a great personality, always smiling, easy to talk to. Man, a few words. But he's awesome.
Developing players.
Coming into their second year in a similar boat as Tyree would be Byron Young. But you know, who didn't see a lot of action as a rookie. What kind of points of emphasis do you see for him to take that next step?
Same thing with him. That kid knows how to play football. It's a style of play he's still developing. It's a finish. It's more than just doing your job, you know. But emphasizing the finish with him. He's really smart. He's really intelligent. He wants to be right, but it's playing with that edge at a consistent level. He's shown flashes of it, and I think he's had a hell of a spring doing those things.
How much does it make you a better coach when you have Max, John, and Adam who are developed players, but they want to be mentors, so they're grabbing Byron, they're grabbing Tyree? How does it help you?
Tremendously. Tremendously. I mean, we have a pretty transparent room, you know, so when I'm coaching something, there's little details. My job is to set the standard for how we do things. How we play a base, how we play a reach, how we play scoop, how we rush the passer with 4, how we rush 5. No, black and white is my job. This is how we do it. Their sauce details within that are everything. You know, they understand how to do things, and then what I call change-ups off of it. You know, like the standard way to middle push, for example. There's a lot of details that go within that. That they always touch on. Stuff you hear out, calls that the offensive line makes, stances, tips, and that's all stuff that can't be coached. You got to play the game to understand those type of things. So, like, tremendously.
Rob, you mentioned you've been at it for 12 years. How much does that experience that you've seen players like Christian Wilkins start slow, obviously get to where he wanted to get to. But when you're coaching somebody like Byron, when you're coaching somebody like Tyree, and maybe it didn't happen overnight for them, how much do you have to remind yourself, still a process, not to get frustrated on your own end, and allow that process to unfold?
Yeah, I mean, the experience of having started with the Giants, I had Lorenzo Carter, second overall pick, going to Miami. I go down and down, but, like, you learn something from every experience, and not all the guys are the same. So how they handle that, how they deal with that, and really communicating with them through that process and just saying, hey, and you just build. I just need you to do this today. Reset, and you can't go in, I want to accomplish this, and this. No, today let's get this fixed. And then once we get that, then we'll build. And just keep stacking. So you're always trying to center their mindset on a day-to-day basis. And then not just when they're here in the building. In the off-season, you know, that's year-round. You know, what are you working at? What's your plan in the offseason? What's your plan this summer when we break for 4 weeks? You know, but with their input along the way. But you got to create the vision for them personally, and then have them walk it.
I'm curious. You have a player from Nigeria, and David Ogoa, and from the NFL International Pathway Program. What's it like coaching somebody who's seen the game perhaps from just a different perspective and not learned it since he was 5 years old and trying to develop as a player?
It tests you as a coach. I love David. It makes me take nothing for granted, assume nothing. You know, I think it was in training camp last year, we were putting in a call, we're like, David, this comes from the field. You know, he was here all spring, mind you. He's like, Coach, what do you mean by the field? And I'm like, oh, I said, shame on me. I said, I didn't explain. This is the hash marks on the field. This is the wide side of the field, this is the short side. So, you know, I sometimes say this line, I'm giving you guys lines that I say in my, there are no, Navy SEALs, they say there are no bad boat crews, only bad boat captains. So, like, that's on me. That's my fault. So, like, with him, back to the progression thing, going back very basic, football 101. You know, that's everything. Calls. Why do we call it base defense? Why do we call it nickel defense? What's nickel? Why do we call it nickel? All those type of things. So you're just building, trying to explain the basics of the game. And like I said, you just can't assume anything. And I tell David, you got to confirm. If you don't know, you need to tell me you don't know. Because a lot of guys will just sit there,
Rob, during OTAs, there was a moment where a player had done something well, and Antonio, paraphrasing here, but basically said, that's what you get for listening to Coach Rob, or whatever. He was in reinforcing you to the players. That's not always the norm in the world of football, where head coaches want to talk, but he is very much building the staff up to the players. Can you talk about working for a coach like that?
It's awesome. I mean, it's the pillars he just talked about this morning. Creating trust. When your head coach echoes, hey, listen to your position coach. I mean, he's got to trust me first in order to say that. But players can sense all those when staff isn't aligned. And I'm very aware of that. Like, Fiends coaches the outside backers. He spends most time with the Sams. I've coached the outside backers. So when J-Rob or some of those guys come to me, I'm like, no. Go to Fiends. Go talk to him. So to create trust that he knows, no crack in the foundation. Does that make sense? It's not that I can't answer the question. That's his department. And I'll echo what Fiends is saying, because it could be the same thing, but if I'm not saying it the exact same way he's saying it, then it can create doubt. It can create, you want them fully confident in what you're asking them to do.
Very good. Thanks, Coach.
Good?
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
Edgar, I'd like to ask you about Devontae. He gets over 1,100 yards, over 100 catches. But when you look at his stats throughout the years, I mean, it wasn't his fault. They were not what they used to be. To coach a unicorn like that, as somebody that's just a different level, how much does that help you coach other wide receivers?
It's very helpful when you have a guy that's that committed, that dedicated, and leads by example. It helps, but our room is filled with quite a few guys that go about it that way, and it's just the standard. It's the mindset. It's how they prepare every day. We take it no different than getting ready for a game. I know we're in OTAs and now we're in our mandatory minicamp, but it's no different as far as the preparation. They take it very serious. Anytime we got an opportunity to step out on the field, we're trying to get better. We're trying to improve.
Watching Trey Tucker as a rookie, it seemed from seeing him on the field that he was kind of getting it more and more as the season went along. What kind of strides have you seen from him?
Continues to improve day by day. So mature for a young player, and he showed that last year. He never really hit a rookie wall. That's something that was impressive with him, just his attitude, his work ethic, and his approach. I mean, he takes it serious as though he wants to be the best, and that's you see it every time he comes into the building. That's his preparation. He stayed in a routine, which was obviously helpful for a rookie player last year, but he continues to show improvements.
How important would you say Jacoby Myers is, not even just in terms of schematically for the offense, but just as a leader to the team and a leader to your room?
Jacoby's another one of those guys. He's a leader. He leads by example. He's vocal. He's been here every day, setting the standard. And I know in our room that's so valuable when you have a number of veteran guys that's their makeup, that's their approach. And like you said, it just makes it a lot easier when young players come in and adapt to our system. This is how we work. This is how we prepare day in and day out. I think it definitely helps with the younger guys.
And obviously, Brock Bowers isn't in your room specifically, but it feels like he's kind of a wide receiver built in a tight end body. What have you seen from Brock Bowers?
Another young guy that's obviously a weapon, explosive, and loves football.
Does it change the job of your room when you've got two tight ends who are such good receivers and route runners as the tight ends are?
The name of the game is to have a lot of different weapons and play a lot of different personnel groupings, and so it helps when you have guys that creates matchup problems for the defense. That's a good thing. And so I think obviously he would our tight ends as a group, they would fit into that category. We hope to make sure we fit into that category as wide receivers. We want to cause problems for people as far as how are they going to match up, how are they going to play us when we jump in 11 or we jump in 12 personnel. So just things like that to create the matchups that we want.
Last season, earlier in the year, it seemed like Trey Tucker was having some kind of focus drops kind of moments, but it seemed like he improved with that as the season went on. What went into him getting better in that area?
I think just as, again, this was, I'm not going to say an issue, but this was something that, we had more than 2 occasions. And so we just focused on it. What can we do to improve in that area? And that's something that we addressed on the practice field.
What are your first impressions of a couple of the new guys, Michael Gallup and the undrafted kid, Tulu Griffin?
I would say with both of those guys, just like the entire group of guys that just entered our program, just kind of getting familiar with the system, the playbook. That's the number one thing. Get familiar with the playbook and then how we practice. But Gallup, he has tape. He's a proven vet in this league. He's been extremely productive, and so we're looking for him to continue to build on that.
What does he bring to the mix as far as the skill set and how he's help you guys schematically?
He can create separation. He seems like another guy that can kind of move around as far as play in a number of different positions. But his ability to catch the football, create separation, those things stand out.
Back to Jacoby, he's going into a 6th year. Like a guy like that, like how much better can he get? Like when you're at that point in your career, how much can you still improve?
I think for all of us, the goal is to continue to improve and get better in each category as a route runner, as a blocker, carrying the football. I think that's our goal. We strive to improve day in and day out. I don't think we've ever hit a certain level where we can just take a deep breath. No, we got to continue to push forward and keep improving, and that's how we stay on top. So that's his mindset. I don't think he'll ever be satisfied with where he's at. I think he's one of the best route runners in football. And I think he'll continue to prove that day in and day out.
Obviously, you're a receivers coach, but when you look at the running back core, you have a lot of guys who are pass catchers out of the backfield. You just drafted Labe, and you have Madison and Amir. Even though that's not necessarily your position group, do you ever, lend a hand to those guys just out of experience?
Right now, I'm so focused on my guys in my room. But whenever they have questions, sure, I'll be happy to chime in. But right now, that's I just try to focus my attention on my room and make sure that we're doing it the right way. But certainly, when those guys have any type of questions, I know they can lean on their coach, and as well as Luke.
Edgar, you know that not all wide receivers are committed to downfield blocking. And that has seemed to become a staple of wide receivers that you coach. Is it a mirror of your toughness, or what is it that you're able to do that a lot of teams struggle with in getting their wide receivers to be involved in plays that they're not part of?
I really think it's just more the culture that AP builds here, where it's about a brotherhood. It's about us taking care of each other. And holding each other accountable and being responsible to each other. And so it's more that than anything. I think guys buy into that as far as the same way a lineman blocks pass protection and the receiver gets open on the route and the quarterback makes the correct throw. It all works together. It's 11 of us. Without all 11, none of us can be successful.
Talked a lot about Jacoby already, but I think everybody knew coming into last year he was good. Were there areas that maybe he was even better than you expected? I know in the locker room he seems to be a really good presence as well.
Yeah, all around. His game overall, because he is very versatile, can play all 3 spots at the receiver position. He can block. His run after the catch, obviously he has really good hands, and he can create separation. And that's, those are some of the things you look for. Those are a lot of the characteristics that you look for, or traits that you look for in a receiver.
Anything jumped out watching the 2 quarterbacks so far?
I think our guys are doing a great job. I think right now this camp is important to continue to build on that chemistry. And then that's something that it happens in the meeting rooms, and then obviously you get a chance to go out on the practice field. It certainly helps when you can kind of start working on the field. The more we can do that, the better.
You've played or coached under guys Mike Holmgren, Mike McCarthy, John Gruden, hands on the quarterback. How's it different? How's the tenor different when you have a coach who was a player and a defensive player?
I think it helps. I think it helps because it goes back to the preparation. You can share a lot of experiences, and you can kind of help them along the way, if that makes sense. But I think our guys, they do a phenomenal job as far as the commitment, the work that they put in and day out, the communication, the conversations that we have. It all helps to speed up the process as far as everyone being on the same page.
All good? All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.